Welcome to the Capital News. I am your host, Alex Karitis. Today is April 2nd, 2019. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope everyone is doing well today. So what took place in the markets today? Well, the S&P was up a whole nickel. The Dow was down 79 points. The NASDAQ closed up 20 points, and the Russell 2000, the small cap index, closed down $2.75 for the day. So we did have a pretty sizable rally yesterday, all above 1% for the close. So this isn't surprising that you have a little bit of profit taking or whatever you want to call it, and just a pretty muted day on Wall Street, but that's where we stand. Oil is now around $63 a barrel, so it continues its ascent. How much further will it go before the president really gets to Twitter and the microphone and really calls out OPEC and Russia and tells them to keep it going? Gold still sits around that $1,300 an ounce level, now sits at $1,296 an ounce. Silver is now at $15.14, and the 10-year Treasury decreased a little bit and now sits at 2.481%. Now, I told you guys yesterday that I wanted to have a conversation with some other data that I've been looking at, and we'll see how far that gets us through today's podcast. But before I get to some of that data, I just want to bring it to everybody's attention that Larry Kudlow, our buddy, was out once again saying that there's going to be good headway. We are making good headway on U.S.-China trade talks. We're getting there. Yes, Larry, we know. We've been told this since the beginning of the year. It's going on 4 months. We were supposed to have a signing ceremony. It was supposed to be historic. It was supposed to be the best deal ever. Yet here we sit, April 2nd, no deal. But everything is going well. I mean, and the markets eat it up to a degree because the markets did go up after this news. This isn't news. This is the same story. It's the same story. It's overplayed. It's overhyped. How much longer will it continue? I don't know, but I'm getting sick and tired of it. But I have to report it because it's the news, and it will move markets one way or the other. It will either catapult them to new highs, or it will be buy the rumor, sell the fact, and we will have a big sell-off. Because I am not expecting this to be the best trade deal ever. I'm just not. This isn't anything against Donald Trump, personally. I just don't think it's going to happen. There's just too many things that there's just going to be too many disagreements on the big-ticket items. Cybersecurity, IP theft. I mean, the Chinese aren't just going to buckle. I mean, they might sign something. They might say, yeah, we'll sign it, we'll do it, but they're not going to. And anybody who believes them is a fool. So what's going to happen with all of these tariffs? Are they going to stay on because it's the carrot and the stick method? I mean, okay, yeah, you guys, all right, you signed it. Yeah, look, I have your signature right here. See, you said it. You said you were going to be good. Now show us that you're being good. And until you do, we're going to continue to levy tariffs on you, on your goods. Of course, the American people are paying it in higher prices, but still, we're going to make your items, at least in theory, less competitive than what they otherwise would be in absence of the tariffs. So is that what's going to happen? So that the tariffs will remain on? This is the best trade deal ever, but look, we have to have enforcement. How is the World Trade Organization going to be involved? Will they be involved? Because I don't think they're a very good enforcement agency, organization. They're just not. So who's going to settle disputes? Because there will most definitely be disputes. And again, don't forget my question to you guys that I posed yesterday. Even if we do have a fantastic deal, it doesn't mean that some other country is not going to be negatively affected. Because China only has so much demand for so many things. If they say, okay, we're not going to buy them from Russia or Brazil anymore, but we'll get them from U.S., well, now you have a segment of the Russian economy and a segment of the Brazilian economy that's not going to do as well. What will be the ripple effects? No, I'm not overly concerned with the people of Russia or Brazil. Of course, I want America to be the best, to succeed. But I'm just putting that out there for you guys to think about because we are so interconnected. Anything could be the tripwire. Anything could be the catalyst. We've had our discussion about the 30 market risks for 2019, and then some, and in some of those we've gone in more depth, and we will continue to do so. And as others arise, We will have those conversations as well. That's what this program is about. But that is most definitely a possibility of being some sort of catalyst. It doesn't need to be something dramatic. It doesn't need to be something huge to tip over that first domino. But once the momentum gets going, it's going to be extremely difficult to stop and slow down. And I think, finally, the president, Larry Kudlow, and some other financial and economic advisors to the White House are picking up on this. Because we have the conversations here daily on the data that's coming out, and it just ain't pretty. Some of it is, and some of it's mixed. But you're going to get that anytime, anywhere. That's why you have to understand which pieces of this economic puzzle are important, and which ones are, kind of on the periphery. Yes, they are part of the puzzle, but how much weight should I give to each and every one of these? Some of them are more important than others. Some of them are just the frame and the outline. Some of them are very colorful, have a lot of detail. Those are what I'd like to pay more attention to, because they're more telling. It's more directional. We are not going to ever be able to time any type of market correction. We're just not. If we do, it's a matter of luck. In all honesty, that's what it is. It's preparation, but there's a lot of luck involved too, to be honest. It just is, because the markets, especially in this era, are extremely irrational. Some other data that we'll get to later in this week will be involving looking at quantitative easing and looking at how the stock market has performed. And basically, it's been money printing that has, quote-unquote, saved the day and has saved the system. That's why the markets threw a hissy fit back in the fourth quarter of 2018, because the Federal Reserve was going to take away the punch bowl. And it did a policy 180, and everything's just been fantastic since then. It was terrible going into it, but now they reversed policy and everything is now fine again. We know better. We know it's not. We know this is propaganda. We know this is rhetoric. We know it's hyperbole. We know it's exaggeration. We know it isn't real. But this is what we're given. And unfortunately, it doesn't matter what you think. It's just what the majority of people are doing. There are more buyers or sellers out there. What's going on? Where's the money flowing? And that's another scary thing, because if you look at those numbers, you shouldn't have a market that's almost going to make new highs. So it's getting scary. There is a complete decoupling from reality. When will it end? Again, we're not going to time it, but you be prepared, you have a plan. Be diversified, stay diversified. Get ready, wait for the sell of a lifetime if you can't stomach the volatility. The risk reward, how much higher is it going to go? Quarter one's already in the books. It's already pretty much record breaking. It's comparable to 1998. I told you guys yesterday, all right, good, 1998. What happened a year or so after? An 80% decline. So, you want the upside or you're going to take the downside. That's what's going to happen. Will it be that severe? Anybody's guess. Anybody's guess. Depends what the catalysts are. I say it repeatedly on this program, what I think the biggest ones are, that being the central bank being out of ammunition and the markets don't take it seriously. And it's like, all right, this game's over. We can't. If you guys continue to print all this money, something really must be amiss. And everybody's just going to hoard cash or get into safety assets, and they're going to move away from the risk curve, and they're going to come back to reality. And with it, stock market could very well crash. That's one. We still have the corporate debt, commercial loans, industrial loans, leverage loans. That scares me. And you still have a lot of the political turmoil that's taking place all over the world, but specifically right now, Brexit is still there. That's not one that really frightens me, but you have other things that could trigger in Italy, because they already are in a recession, and you have Germany, which is pretty much in recession, just not officially yet. So you have the largest economy in the European Union. You have, I believe, the UK is the second largest economy, and then Italy, I think, is the third or fourth largest. And nobody's looking good. Nobody's looking good, but we're told by our dear leaders in government and their minions that everything is fine. Everything is fine. And that's why they're starting to dance. That's why they're coming out starting to blame the Federal Reserve. I knew this was going to come. We're not surprised by this. We have this conversation all the time. But look at what's going on. It's just the land of Oz. It really is. And it ain't right, because this affects people personally. It affects their pocketbooks. But as long as people on Wall Street are making money, I guess we couldn't care less. It's a shame. But some of the data that I want to talk about today has to deal with federal government current tax receipts. Okay, now what this is pretty much comprised of is the income tax, corporate taxes, and tariffs. Now there might be some other things thrown in there, but that's pretty much it. Now this is not including payroll tax. Okay, it is not including payroll tax. But nevertheless, this is something to look at, because could this potentially be a recession indicator? Okay, because if you look at the data, and what I have before me is quarterly data with year-over-year percentage changes, and then what it has been since 1980. And I went back because I want to look for historical trends. I want to have a number of recessions to look at to see if this is a recession indicator, what's going on here. And when you look at 1980 to present day, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 recessions over the course of this period. Obviously, the most recent being that of the 08-09 Great Recession. When you look at federal government current tax receipts, yes, you might have a percent change from the year ago be in negative territory. There are some one-offs, but they're one-offs, believe me, if you look at the data. They are not frequent. But you have a grouping of current tax receipts being in negative territory on a year-over-year basis prior to a recession or in a recession. And this makes sense. This makes sense. This is why I talk about a $4.75 trillion budget at the end of a business cycle just being utterly ridiculous, unsustainable, but it's record-setting, so who cares? $1 trillion deficits as far as the eye can see, but nobody cares. Nobody talks about it. Man, let's just keep printing money. That's how you sustain GDP. You just make it up. You just print money. You put it on the backs of the middle class of this country. Increase their taxes, or you increase their inflation through money printing. That's how you do this. That's how it works. You're paying for it one way or the other. I told you the piper always gets paid. So when you look at the data, you have year-over-year changes in the red. When you're in a recession or shortly thereafter, okay? Some one-offs here and there. Well, here's what's interesting right now. Going back 5 quarters from October of 2018, because I don't have updated data from the source that I use. So from October of 2018, we have a negative rate of growth, year-over-year change, from October, the July quarter, the April quarter, the January quarter, all the way back to October of 2017. So you have 5 quarters of negative percentage changes from a year ago with no recession, okay? Any other time you have that type of grouping, that many back-to-back quarters in negative territory, you are in a recession going back to 1980. So what's going on here? This is also in the midst of an inverted yield curve, which again is a big piece of the puzzle. This is in the center of the puzzle as far as I'm concerned. It isn't the biggest piece, but it is an important piece of the economic puzzle to pay attention to. But so is this, because you don't see this type of phenomenon happening frequently. You see this occurring in times of recession. The only thing missing from this graph, if you wanted to say, well, all right, well, for some uniformity here, for what makes sense, we need to have the recession to go along with this. Well, we're not in one, we're told. We're told this is the best economy ever. So something here is amiss. And these are most definitely not one-offs if you look at it. They're not. This isn't like 0.1% net to the downside. 0.2. We have, I'll read them off to you. Going back to October of 2017, it was a decline of 0.4%. Then in January of 2018, it was negative 6%. The April quarter was negative 5.6%. The July quarter of 2018 was negative 5.1%. In October of 2018 was negative 1.9%, so negative 2%. Those aren't small potatoes. Those aren't small numbers. So what's going on here? Is this another recession indicator? Is it? Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it isn't. Maybe everything is fine, and this is just a result of those tax cuts without being paid for. And, this is just an investment. This is money out the door because we're just going to be making so much more on the other side in another year or two. Maybe that happens. Maybe it does. The data will say so if that's the case. But it will also say otherwise if it isn't. And that's what I look for. I'm not here to be a spin doctor for the White House. I'm not here to be a spin doctor for the Republican Party or the Democrat Party. I'm here to look at the data and make a conclusion. And right now, along with everything else, something's amiss. Because to me, this is a pretty good indicator that we are in recession or about to be in one or should be in one. Because you have to remember, ladies and gentlemen, a recession is a lagging indicator. We will not be officially informed that we are in a recession until we've already been in one. Because a recession, technically speaking, is 2 consecutive quarters back to back of negative GDP growth. So that's 6 months. And then it takes a while for the government to come out and give you those numbers. And when if they're going to be that bad, when you have a president who says we're in the midst of an economic miracle, oh my goodness, do you see the problem with that? Do you see the problem with those numbers being released if that's where we are? So here's where we stand. It's propaganda all over the place. It's the president and his White House starting to do the Potomac two-step, starting to put the blame at the feet of the Federal Reserve. Again, I'm fine with that because the Federal Reserve should be abolished. And the Fed. I say it all the time. Do not strike at the branches, strike at the root. The Federal Reserve is part of the root. The income tax is part of the root. Strike at those things. Don't go all out on a limb complaining about the Green Deal and climate change and a whole bunch of other crap. Strike at the root of the problem. And then you can allow the free market to solve these other problems. And it will, because that's what the free market does. That's what people do. But when they're handcuffed by high taxes and inflation and a government joined at the hip with big business that introduces barriers to entry and maintains those barriers to entry and keeps them as high as possible, very costly for an entrepreneur to start a business and to become competitive, here's what you get. This is what you get. So there is a lot of overlap between what the president and his base says, and ironically, what the likes of the lunatic fringe on the left says. There is a lot of overlap, believe you me, when I tell you, if you're going after the banks, if you go after the Federal Reserve, you will get a lot of support. Because people know something's amiss. You just have to have a leader up there who can explain it articulately so they understand, oh yeah, that's right. This doesn't make sense. Why is everything going up and I'm only told it's only going up 1%, 2%? I know my grocery bill is going up a lot more than that. I know my utilities are going up a lot more than that. I know my health insurance is going up a lot more than that. My education costs, this, that, and the other, everything, A to Z, is going up more than 1 or 2%. Yet the government tells me it's only 2%, and I know they don't lie. No, the government would never lie. If that's what the numbers are, that's what the numbers are. Oh, it's scary. But I think if the president does this, because again, especially for those who may just be joining for the first time, I believe the president will win his re-election bid in 2020. Primarily because of who he's up against. He has a track record that is 50-50. There's a lot of things he can lay credit for. A lot of things I give him credit for, absolutely. But there's a lot of things that he hasn't even discussed. And there have been some political maneuvering, this being one in particular, of taking ownership of the stock market, which I just think has been beyond foolish. I understand you want to be a cheerleader for the American people, for this country. That's a good thing. But you're supposed to be a different type of politician. You're supposed to be the straight shooter. You're supposed to be the guy who comes in with business acumen and precision and just tells it like it is. And that's what he should have done. He shouldn't have come in and said, I want to own the stock market because it's making new highs. It makes you really sound more like an elitist as it does a man of the people, because it was the people, it was blue-collar individuals who crossed the line, and particularly in Pennsylvania, in Ohio, in Michigan, in Wisconsin. He said, you know what? I'm done with these elitists. I'm done with the Barack Obamas, the Joe Bidens, the Hillary Clintons of the world. Let's give this guy a chance. He's going to shake it up. That's what we need. We need somebody in there to shake it up. Now you have the military-industrial complex making record profits, the financial institutions making record profits. The Federal Reserve is on a tear, no end in sight. They continue to print cheap money, which just decimates anybody who's trying to save, anybody who's on a fixed income. And the president wants to take credit for all of this. That is not candidate Trump of 2015 and 2016. So where is this man? Has he been hijacked? Was that who he was in 2015 and 2016, and now the deep state has him? What's going on here? Because that's the evidence. That's what it looks like. Again, I am still hopeful and anticipating fireworks, hopefully this year, hopefully sooner rather than later, in regards to justice being done to those who have been investigating this president, those who have been putting forth the witch hunt. It turned out to be a witch hunt, the Trump-Russian collusion story that we've been hearing for 2-3 years now. I hope there is true justice coming. If he can drain the swamp, he will get my vote. If he doesn't, I'm going to believe that we've been conned or that somebody got to him. And I'll sit on the sidelines because there's no way I'm going to vote for somebody on the left. But I won't vote for a con man either. I want to see action. I don't want to see games being played because these are people's lives that are in the crossfire. And this is serious stuff. And to give the man, the president, a lot of credit, I mean, he's up against a multi-trillion-dollar-a-year machine. You can't expect miracles. But there are some things. Look, if you have the Trump card, if you're going to declassify information, you don't need to hold it in your pocket for the best time. You're not selling a product here. You're trying to save a republic. If you have the information, you let it be known, and you get these people off the street. This is where we are as a country. And it ain't worth risking for a fireworks show, a display, to be a showman, to be a salesman, the mass marketer. It's too important to put those things, you have to put those types of things aside. Because you have data all over the place that says we're in recession or should be in one pretty soon. Yet we're told everything is great. But at the same time, the Federal Reserve, you got to cut basis points immediately by 50 basis points. I thought everything was great. No. It is. It's fantastic. Believe me, it's fantastic. But the Federal Reserve, just to make sure that it remains great, continue to inflate our currency so it becomes worth less and less and less until it truly is worthless. Does that make sense to you? It doesn't make sense to me. But that's where we are. And that's why the president and his economic team is dancing. Federal government current tax receipts. Look it up if you don't believe me. It's good stuff. I'm telling you, it's good stuff. And I'm also working on putting together some other information for you guys, something that I'll be offering to everybody, not just people who listen, but anybody who might find the capitalnews.com out there. I hope to have this item. It's going to be a newsletter. Hopefully I can get this put together and have everything up and running by the end of this month. That's my goal, but there's a lot of information, a lot of things that still needs to be done to get it finalized. But I'm hoping at the end of this month, early next month, to have that up and running for you guys. And then once that gets set up, I'm going to start putting a lot more things on YouTube. Some of you may be listening to this podcast on YouTube. Others listen to it directly from the website. I know I have a lot of listeners now on iTunes. All that stuff's great. But I know I'm going to be posting some more things to YouTube as I progress with this podcast, just to sort of make them shorter, probably more like a 10 to 15 minute type of presentation. And of course, it'll be video. I might be able to post that to my website as well, but it'll just be visual as opposed to just listening to me talk here, because then you can actually see a lot of the data that I look at when I'm talking to you guys. So, and because it's interesting. The data tells a story, and it just lets you know what I'm looking at, why I think these things are important. And then it just gets everybody more involved in the conversation. So look for those things to come. I'm a one-man band here. I'm doing my best, but I hope to get some more products out there for you guys, and I really appreciate more and more people joining the channel. So I'll see you guys next time. Please like, share, subscribe, get the word out, leave your comments. I would love to hear from you guys. This is the Capital News. I am Alex Kreitis. Godspeed.